So, welcome, Peter Maunder. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak with me.
No problem. That wasn't going anywhere.
Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? This lack of music making is really impacting on me personally. I don't know about you.
It's a weird time. It really is. I did think about doing what everybody else is doing and putting something up online on a YouTube or something like that. I think everybody has their own way of dealing with all this lockdown. I'm a nerd, so it's actually probably easier for me than most. I've got nerdy things happening on the SACBUT and things I can't even talk about with model railways. So.
With model railways, we are going to get back to that. For the uninitiated, can you explain what a SACBUT is, Peter?
Oh no, SACBUT. Yeah, a SACBUT is a Baroque trombone. There's the trombone really before 1750.
Right.
And we use the word sackbut just to differentiate it from the modern trombone. It was always trombone in Italy. It was Posana in Germany, but we just use the term sackbut so that we know it's different to the modern trombone.
It looks like a trombone, though, doesn't it?
It kind of does. It's just a bit thinner and more ornate. Mine's based on an instrument from 1595.
Wow. You're sort of almost a model for members of Orchestra Wellington in that you have a very varied career musically. You freelance, you play with the education programs, of course you play principal trombone with us, and you also play in freelance groups around the city, including this original instruments group. Do you want to speak a little bit about that group?
Yeah, well, it's called the Queen's Closet, which is it's a bit of a provocative name. It's based on the palace in Richmond, I think, in the UK, where during the Restoration period, the decor was completely over the top, and so it's the group. The core repertoire is the Restoration period in Britain. So there's lots of trumpet stuff but I think it's really important that to keep on going in your career, you really have to do what you enjoy.
There's a level of satisfaction that you've achieved in recent years.
Yeah, I would say so, and it wasn't entirely what I expected. I didn't plan to do this. I didn't plan to play principal trombone with Orchestra Wellington. That was something which just. It was almost expedient for me to do so at the time.
So do you enjoy playing with the orchestra?
We have done great programs since I've been here with Orchestra Wellington, and it does free me to do other things.
One of the roles that you play in the orchestra, of course, I think I've been effusive in my praise. Your playing is amazing. Having a person of your talent, but also your experience in the role in the back of the orchestra there is just great. And anyone who goes to Orchestra Wellington concerts can hear that very, very plainly. We have a killer brass section. But you also have an additional role in the orchestra, which is slightly unusual, though, can I say, in my other orchestra, in the Vallejo Symphony, we have a principal trombonist who also holds the same role in that orchestra. So can you tell me what this role is?
I'm on the board of Orchestra Wellington. Within the guidelines and the rules, it's possible for there to be two members of the orchestra on the board. And there are at the moment. The other one is Paul Altamari, the principal bass player. That's not a board representation role. It's not a role where I take views from the players and represent those views. It is actually my own position and on the basis of my experience and in the music business.
So there's a famous orchestra chief executive in America named Henry Fogel. For many years, he was the chief executive of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. He's now an advisor for orchestras around the world. And he once made a statement, which at first glance I found rather provocative. He said that the most important aspect of any orchestra is the board, is the governance. And at first, I disagreed with this. because, as I'm sure you well know, I think the most important aspect of an orchestra is, in fact, the audience. That is the listener, that is the interpreter of the music. But the more I thought about it, what is a board other than a representation of the entire orchestra community?
Yeah, I think so. And it's important that you do get that link between the people who know the politics and the business side of things and the money side of things, because um, the understanding of what we actually do and how we do it isn't always obvious to those people who are engrossed in those fields. And you know, we sometimes even use different words, different language, and different values as to how we you know, as how we appraise ourselves and what we do.
You're a person whose opinion I value very, very highly when it comes to choices that I make for the repertoire with the orchestra. The challenge is, how do we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace? And the most obvious way to differentiate ourselves is through programming. And obviously this idea of thematic programming is one way that we've been able to do this. I think I mentioned this in a previous video that I made for Orchestra Wellington, in that we have an advantage in that we're a programming-led orchestra rather than an artist-led orchestra, if that makes sense. Now, you're a sounding board for me. Do you want to speak a little bit about how our relationship works in terms of programming and what your feeling is in terms of our approach with programming?
I'd like to see the thread of intellect come through in the programming, rather than just saying, well, this sells. You can decide, well, this is where my season wants to go, and for a reason, and it goes together much more coherently. The thing is, like, you've been doing this for a while now, and with the you've taken the audience with you on this ride. So that helps you, because it means that you, in the one sense, because you don't have to worry about doing something which is a bit too complicated, because they like that. They're used to that. Mm. They're used to having some sort of thread there. They're used to having it revealed as it goes through, and they trust you. The players get paid for what they do while they're doing it, but nobody gets paid to practice. Nobody gets paid to be at this magnificent standard that we've attained, and we continue to push. The rewards are fantastic. You know, when like people actually love to be able to perform and to do and to do what they've trained for.
The most important aspect of what we do, in a way, is the art. Every decision we make is based on the art. Of course, the B word, budget, may come up. This idea of balance, another B word in programming, may come up. How does one derive a coherent season through the year? And these are questions that come in the periphery, but ultimately the guiding light for what we do is always the art form. That's what I think we all strive for.
What we're going to arrive at is something which we can't do at the moment, and that is to have a live performance. And that is, for me, it always has been the absolute essence of music. You know, I mean, you can talk about it, you can read about it, you can listen to it on whatever medium you want, or you can watch it nowadays on all sorts of YouTube stuff, or the podcasts, or whatever. But all that is just a reflection of the actual live performance, which is, as I say, that is the essence. It's when it actually happens right there in front of you. This is what we do, and yeah. It's what the players do. It's what the players practice for. It's what you do when you practice that is really special, that allows you to be able to do this. Right? Don't think that practice is boring. Yes, it is boring a lot of the time, but you have to. That allows you to be able to take these risks and to do something special on stage. you actually never know what's going to happen in the performance. If you knew exactly what would happen in the performance, then you're not actually performing. You're just being a sort of automatic, line chef or whatever. Then there has to be that element of it, and the audience know that, and the audience appreciate that.
A concert is something that is unique. It will never be repeated again. And that is the essence of music making to me. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, please buy our live CD and LP of Beethoven's First and Third Symphony. It's marvelous.
That's probably the most frustrating thing about being in this situation at the moment. I mean, you can put something up on YouTube, but the process is absolutely divorced from what we normally do. You know, playing to a click, or playing with a lag over Zoom or something like that. It's just a different thing. I mean, it can be wonderful. I mean, there's some great stuff that people put up, but it's not what we do. And I can wait. It's that the actual experience of when we do it properly is good enough. Then I'm happy to wait for that, and then we'll get back to some sort of normality, whenever that's going to be.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I have to say, this is one of the reasons why we've embarked on this video chat, or pre-concert talk, or Orchestra Wellington at home, what have you. I don't know what we're really calling it. But it's just a chance to do something other than performance, but in a way, I hope, build bridges with our audience, come to a sense of understanding, get the audience to meet people that they might only see on the stage, or people behind the scenes, such as Kirsten. You know, give a sense of insight as to what it is like to actually be in an orchestra, what it's like to run an orchestra, what are the considerations that we make. I just hope that it deepens the appreciation for what is involved from all parties, the composer, the performers, the audience. It's an incredibly special thing.
And for the players themselves, sometimes you have to sort of try and reconcile why you put yourself through this, because it can very often be quite an ordeal. You're sitting up there and you think this is actually really, really difficult, and I'm scared, and I don't know how it's going to happen, and then it either goes well or it doesn't, and you feel relieved afterwards, and that is the concert experience for you. And sometimes it feels like an ordeal, but the thing is, then you think, I want to do that again tomorrow. It's quite a paradox. It really is. You think this is what you've practiced for, and this is what you wanted to do, and whatever. And very often it scares the hell out of you.
One of the aspects of music, it's almost meditative in a really sometimes frightening way. And this is this idea of you have to be in the moment. You have to play a note. It has to happen precisely at the right time. Are you ready for it or not? Doesn't matter. You have to play it at that point. You have to be in the moment. You have to be immersed in the music. And the greatest musicians are those that are always in the moment, and they're listening to their colleagues. They're totally au fait with the score in front of them. It's both beautiful and, as you mentioned, rather scary at times.
The actual level of mental arousal is incredibly high. You're looking at the music, and you've got the conductor at best in peripheral vision, and also you're hearing. You're listening to your own playing, but you're also listening to the other people's playing, and picking out things in what's known as the cocktail party effect. So you're listening for the little stuff out of the melee and whatnot. So that's almost like a peripheral hearing. But then you also have to make sure that you're playing in time as well. So you've got your short-term memory is busy with keeping the time, keeping it, remembering where you are in the piece. Long-term memory is obviously remembering all the other stuff that you've learned during the rehearsal, and you're learning about your playing and whatever. Physically, you've got to play the instrument and remember all this, the stuff. Again, that's long-term and short-term memory. You haven't got much left by the time the what you're having to do and think about while you're actually playing is quite phenomenal. Mm. And of course, the practice is the special thing, which means that you can bank so much of that because it's become routine. So you have more left in your brain to actually think about and turn on the dime.
The analogies of how a sports person practices, trains, versus a musician training at home are really, really clear. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think with an athlete, they would feel feel really awkward if they couldn't train, if they couldn't run, if they couldn't keep in shape, and I feel exactly the same. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I haven't played yet today, but I know I want to play, and I want to, and I should play, even though there are bits of me that still hurt a bit and ache a little bit because I played yesterday. that's and I'm sure that's exactly the same. And actually, a lot of the stuff it's boring. It's necessary to do, and I do this. I sometimes wonder why that I keep on doing this over and over again. But
it's because Peter,
it's comforting.
It's because you're an inspiration to us all.
I think it's because I'm an enormous nerd, actually.
Now, speaking of enormous nerds, I believe you have a hobby that you'd like to share with the rest of us.
Well, I could do, yeah. It's quite a long way down, so we're gonna have to move a little bit. I can show you some of it.
Yeah, I want to see this.
I'll show you a small section of it. This is stuff that I've been working at the moment, which is incredibly nerdy. All right, have you got? Can you see down here?
Yes. What is that?
There you go. Now, I just built that signal box from a little kit. The points are from a kit, and you can see in front of the signal box, there's some, you can see the point rodding that I put in on the points. There you look.
Did you paint that diorama in the background?
No, that's a photograph.
Oh, it's a photograph, okay.
I put that up just so that we can, that when I can build the scenery around that, and it's possible to sort of blend in all the stuff so that you can't tell where the scenery starts and the back scene starts. So it's yeah, it's pretty nerdy. It's pretty. So this is nosebleed stuff.
It really is. I mean, I don't understand it, but I do acknowledge that you're not the only trombonist that is in the model railroads.
It is actually not unusual for musicians. Frank Sinatra liked model trains. Mel Torme liked model trains. Rod Stewart is an enormous model railway enthusiast.
Wow. Why didn't I know this?
So Gomez Adams, if you remember, from the Adams family, he loved his trains, but he tended to blow them up. It's an incredibly absorbing hobby, and it's different for everybody who does it. But you have to be a half-decent joiner, electrician, historian, landscape designer, just general nerd. But everybody has their own little part of it. Mine is sort of written in the 1970s. It's one of those hobbies that you can find your own niche as far as that's concerned.
Peter, it's been fantastic speaking with you. Thank you very much for telling us some of your ideas and your thoughts about playing in Orchestra Wellington, your ideas of what's important in our art form, and also letting us into your little hobby.
my little world of Lilliput.
You know, we are so fortunate to have a person such as yourself serving as a brilliant principal trombonist, also a very wise advisor at board level, a person that also works tirelessly in our education department as well. And then our relationship, both personally and professionally, I really cherish. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you on stage very, very soon.
Well, yeah, Yeah, and yeah, likewise.